I used to trust in an outcome. He's gonna heal. And I don't trust in that anymore. Now I trust in like the actual goodness of God. Like he's so good that even if I suffer from Lyme disease for the rest of my life, like he's still really good. It's just crazy. The more that I've suffered, the more convinced I am that he's really good. Hi everybody, and welcome back to With All Her Mind. I am Justice Keel, and this is Chris Keel, my husband, and he's back as a guest on the show, but he's actually like sort of guest hosting today because he's going to interview me.
Yeah.
We are going to be talking about chronic illness, something that I have dealt with as long as I can remember pretty much, and Chris didn't know anything about until he married me. And so we have kind of, I don't know, an interesting process with it. I don't know. I think it'll encourage people.
I think it's probably been one of the greatest challenges of our marriage is this issue that we're going to talk about today. I think a lot of people deal with chronic sickness, and a lot of people probably don't even know what they're dealing with, but they just feel sick a lot, you know. And I think we're gonna talk a little bit about just how we process suffering and just some of the concepts that I think that we were not really equipped with in our upbringing, our spiritual upbringing, to process like how to deal with certain things. So well, first, give me your background on being sick. So tell people a little bit about, I think specifically I'm trying to get at like the endo and the Lyme.
Yeah. There's a couple other side quests.
Yeah. We could talk for like so long about this.
Skip over, I'll gloss over them. Basically had really bad fatigue as long as I can remember. Really starting when I was like a teenager. And then from my first period, I was having excruciating pain. And the problem is that when your whole context is like your entire experience, you're like, wow, I'm in pain. You tell another woman and she goes, that's cramps. And then you're like, wow, I can't believe this is what cramps are. And women just keep functioning. And so I would just keep pushing through, even though I was in horrible, horrible pain, because I just thought that was normal. And I remember just thinking every month, like, this is crazy that women are pushing through this all the time. And then when I was in college, my symptoms became worse, but I still didn't identify them as like endometriosis. I was like, oh, I must have eaten something funny, or I don't know. I never connected the dots until I was like 23 and ended up in the hospital, which is a whole interesting story I should put into an episode sometime, because I was competing in a pageant and I literally ran off the stage, almost passed out, and my mom had to take me to the ER. And I was kept in the hospital for a few days, and they gave me 0 answers and a bottle of pain medicine. And they were like, if this ever happens again, just take this medicine.
Well, and endometriosis I still feel like that's a relatively new diagnosis. I feel like I see it mentioned more on the internet now. But
it's not a new diagnosis, but it's definitely been hard to diagnose, and it's becoming easier to diagnose, partially because of medical advancement, but mostly because of word of mouth via social media. And I came at the beginning of that wave.
Yeah, because this was what, 10 years ago, roughly now?
Yeah, it was 10 years ago. And I had it for 10 years at that point, basically.
And so was it present all the time, or it would just hit you?
In the beginning, it was only during my like certain parts of my cycle. And then it became, as years went by, it became more and more. And then it was at a point where it was like half of my cycle, this was going on. Not like I need to be in the hospital. That would be like for 4 or 5 days. It'd be that level of pain. But then when I would walk, I would like feel so much pain inside, and it would get worse and worse. But when I came home from the hospital, just a side thing that might be helpful for people, I researched to figure out what was wrong with me. I got online and I started just researching like the few things that I knew from the hospital. They did an ultrasound and they said free fluid in the abdomen. And I was like, okay, I know that I just started my period. I have free fluid in my abdomen. I'm in like this kind of pain. I had my least symptoms. I'm like just researching. And everything that's coming up is endometriosis. And this is how much I had been downplaying what I was going through and trying to convince myself that this was normal for all these years. So I was like, no, there's nothing that wrong with me. Like, I know about endometriosis. There's nothing that wrong with me. And it turns out there was something that wrong with me, because a year later, I ended up being able to get wide excision surgery, which is the golden standard of care for endometriosis. And basically, they treat it like a cancer. And so my surgeon didn't use robotics, didn't use anything. He is by hand going in, and he has like a laser or whatever, but he's using his judgment to go in and cut out all of this tissue. And he has a pathologist in the room who is checking the tissues. So my surgery was projected based off of like how severe he thought my endometriosis was, to take about 3 hours, which he said would be, a moderate case. And it ended up being 7.5 hours long. And just the amount of endometriosis that I had, the severity of it, he said it was some of the worst he'd seen in someone my age. And so that was very validating, but also really difficult at the same time, because for all these years I've been so hard on myself. Like, why are you so lazy? Why can't you just like get up and do stuff? And, a number of things like that. Why can't you just go to that? Get over it. You're not in that much pain. And then realizing that I had such severe endometriosis that had been affecting me all along it just makes it hard for you to trust yourself, because you're like, how do I even know? Like, what is the standard for how hard to push myself? Because I'm just so used to feeling this way and it's not good. How much should I push myself? Just all those types of things. After my surgery, it took me, I'd say like 7 or 8 months to get back to where I was before my surgery. And I was really like bad before my surgery. And that's a very unusual recovery time. And then I would say like at a year, I was like, wow, I noticed a difference, but I still didn't feel good. And so that is when, I think a couple years before that, my mom and Grace had both been diagnosed with Lyme disease. And so that's when I decided, okay, I need to check into this and see if I also have it. And then I found out I did have Lyme disease. And that's probably why my recovery was so extended and so difficult.
So much harder.
Yes.
And Lyme affects people very differently, right?
Yeah.
Like it kind of, and it's very, it seems like it's kind of a disease that's hard to nail down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which endometriosis is similar. So I had all these hopes that like, I'm going to be better now, because for some people that is the case. Some people have white excision and all of their symptoms go away. I have to say that it was 100% worth getting the surgery, because I'm not in pain anymore, like around my cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, I live the contrast between what I thought cramps were when I had endometriosis and what they are now is like alarming. I'm like remembering back to being 15 and how hard I was pushing myself to go out with my friends when I would be on my period. And it makes me feel sad for myself then, because I would be so hard, like, you're so lazy. Why didn't you just get up? But I was in excruciating pain and I just thought it was normal. So the surgery was a huge success, but it didn't fix a lot of my other
symptoms. It probably didn't feel like a success because that surgery triggered your Lyme to really come in, right?
Yes, I think so. It's, again, the symptoms, there's so much overlap that it's kind of hard to know.
Like
but it does seem like the surgery created, I guess, one of my really good friends, Ava Pompa, she's a part of the Pompa family, and they have the Pompa program, which is amazing for people who are dealing with chronic health things. She has a language, we're talking about this, where she says that Lyme is opportunistic. And so some people's bodies are exposed to it and able to keep it at bay because their body doesn't give Lyme the opportunity to kind of rise up. Different things can create that opportunity, stressful events in life, traumatic things, or physical traumas. Like a surgery is a physical trauma. And so then if you start compounding these things where you're having like a physical trauma with an emotional thing, with a spiritual thing, it really creates opportunities for Lyme and other pathogens to kind of have a heyday in your body. So I do think that's like some of what happened. So I found out I had Lyme disease. We've like gone through so many different
This is kind of what I'm trying to get at, is like for how many years in a row were you like chronically sick, essentially?
Oh, years. I mean, I was functioning really well in my freshman year of college. Things started to go downhill in my sophomore year of college. So I guess I was like 20 when things, and I'm almost 32.
Yeah, so it's pretty accurate to say close to 12 years you have been struggling with chronic health stuff.
And before that, I was dealing with chronic fatigue in a way that really affected my life too, but to a lesser degree than what I experience now.
Yeah. So, I think that, and I feel like, when I came into this, I feel like your family had kind of learned how to cope with how sick you and Grace were. And your mom had been really sick as well. And so there was kind of you guys had a way of interacting with that, which makes a lot of sense that was kind of the way that you guys had survived through that. I think that, I think that's a good context for like where your life was at when we got married. So, because when we got married, we moved a little bit outside of where we are now, outside of the city. We had some acreage, and we were like, we're gonna
do the homestead dream.
And it was amazing in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I remember, right away, kind of how sick you were, and how this like really caught me off guard, and it really scared me at first because I had never,
which freaked me out because I was like, didn't you realize this?
Which I didn't. I don't think I had any idea like what being like chronically sick all the time was like, in my family that it was, there's just like not a grid for that. My dad, I remember we were in the forest one time, and he like really severely cut his finger with this knife. Like it was an accident, but he had gone through like a big part of the bone. It was like kind of lying like crooked. And he just took like
trigger warning.
Yeah. He just took like duct tape and just taped it up, and that's literally all he did. And I don't know what it is. Like there was just like, I didn't have this like, like hyper nurturer, now
just hyper nurturer. Your family is all boys.
Yeah.
Besides your blessed mother.
That's my blessed mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank God is gonna have a granddaughter soon, from your brother and sister-in-law, and they are just 100% all boy, and so there's no balance of like a little bit of nurturing tiny vibes.
Yeah.
Like, your mom was like, she has a great reward for herself with. I mean, things like her husband cutting through his finger and duct tape.
Yeah, totally.
Back on.
And I can remember even being up in this cabin that like my great-great-grandfather built, which was like, he built it in like 1910, and it was like this.
It's such a cool
place. But we were staying there with my grandmother just for like an old time's sake. They'd built this like much bigger house on the property now, but like there was the old cabin was still there. We're staying there in the snow. My grandma's like 85 years old, and she's just like, it's probably like, -5 or 10 up there. And she's just like sitting in this blanket and just totally like loving life. And I don't know, they were just a very specific kind of people.
And she probably went through the Great Depression too.
Oh, she did. She totally did. She like wouldn't throw like onions away. She wouldn't throw bags away. She she was hardcore. She just was. And my mom was kind of raised by her. And so they have this like similar mentality that was really kind of the context for coming into the situation where now all of a sudden we're living kind of far away from everyone, like on our own property. You are very, very sick. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to do this. I'm like cool for a couple days, and then like we start getting into months, and I'm like, what is going on? And I don't think that I did a really great job in those years. Like, I mean, it's something we really had to work on in our marriage. So
I think the emotional thing then is another thing that creates opportunity.
For sure.
Like emotional turmoil creates opportunity for real physical things to happen as well. This is this is like a side note, but a pet peeve of mine is when people are like, it's just emotional, or it's just spiritual, or it's just physical. I think everything is holistic. It's all of it. So it's not that because I was in emotional turmoil that what I was going through wasn't real physically, or like vice versa, but they affect each other. Anyways, so continue. Something we've had to work through.
Yeah, well, and I'm also just kind of curious, like how you experienced me during those periods.
How much do you want me to say? It was hard. It was very hard.
Yeah.
It was really, really a painful experience because I'm thinking that you understood this because I tried to like tell you, and this is something about Chris in general. So I'll try to warn him about things, and he's like, "Ah, it's gonna be great," and I'm like, "Okay, I like this positivity, but here's the thing: it's gonna be great, but not because everything's gonna go well." And I need to make sure we have things in the right order, not that you think it's going to be great because everything's going to go great. Like, this is really hard. This is like a really big part of my life is like struggling with this. But two things that I think made this more complicated. One is that I don't think I realized how abnormal my experience was of just physical health suffering.
Yeah, because you had been around your family who was all kind of going through this.
And we all helped each other so much.
Yeah.
What's interesting, and if you've had chronic health issues, you know, it's cyclical. Things, you'll have like a really bad week and then a really great week.
Yeah,
where
which
you're
is
like
so confusing.
thriving. And also you can rally because stress hormones really help suppress like your immune function basically. And so I would rally for things and then I would crash out for like 2 weeks afterwards. But Grace and my mom and I would really help each other. My mom's health, by the way, like now is amazing. So she's really a testament to me that you can like heal and it's worth making the efforts that she's made for years and years. But for many years, we were all like helping each other out. And we really created an interdependence that was so helpful. And then my dad's always thriving.
Yeah.
And so he helped us a ton. And so we helped each other in ways where we didn't really feel the burden of it so much because we were like really just like a good family team.
And you learn how to
have that yet.
Yeah, and you learn how to figure that. You learn how to figure that out and what you guys needed. And that was all like so new to me. And I feel like we had so much new going on. We got pregnant right away. We were
9 months in.
Yeah, 9 months in our first year. We had just moved to this home that really neither one of us had any time in, and we were both
And you had just moved to Tennessee,
and like
which you didn't really want to be doing.
Yeah, there was a bunch of things that were going on that would made this like really complicated. But yeah, that was a really, really difficult season for us, and I think that one of the things that I could have done better at is I just think learning how to respond to your heart would have been a much better thing for much better strategy for me during this time. Because I'm also very like results oriented. Like if like you bring me a problem, like my guy brain comes on and then I'm gonna be on Google for the next 3 days until I figure out like how to solve Lyme disease.
I'm like, I don't need you to solve Lyme disease.
Yeah, totally.
I need to just feel like I'm not alone while I'm going through Lyme disease.
Which was like just like going over my head. Still goes over my head sometimes. I'm like, that's not a solution to anything. But
you know what I feel like I don't even think you realized all of this until Colette was born.
Totally.
Until maybe a year or a year and a half after he was born. Maybe even more, because I started experiencing postpartum depression and anxiety like very severely.
Which I feel like that was just like another thing. I feel like we never got a break. It was just like one thing.
Because I think all of these things are opportunistic, really. And the thing that is so amazing about you, and I think you exemplify like the male genius taken to an extreme. Okay, so it could be you could have like a little bit of like, I don't want to call it female, but there could be a little more like nurturing qualities.
Sure.
And I represent the female extreme.
Yeah,
and I
totally.
like both of us have really helped each other come into balance a little bit more, and we're still working on that in both of us. But postpartum, you just went into like autopilot mode. And so you were completely emotionally unavailable, I would say.
I didn't feel like there was any oxygen in the room for more emotion.
Okay.
Like it felt like.
But you were like practically incredible. Like when I tell people what you did postpartum, they don't understand like what the thing is. And then when I am like, but emotionally, then they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Because you got the First 40 cookbook, which is this like really amazing cookbook of the first 40 days postpartum, what to do for your wife. And you were making this food. It's like Chinese medicine soup from scratch. And you're like in the kitchen for hours every single day, making this incredible food, which is so great, you know, and that's like your way. I know this now about you, but that's your way of loving people, is like making something for them, doing something for them. Like you're very action oriented. The problem was that
still is sometimes.
Yeah, I was in the bedroom with my newborn, like
a class 5, like
having panic
depression.
attacks. Yeah. More it was the anxiety that was worse for me than the depression. The depression came because of the anxiety. And so I needed like you to be emotionally there for me. And this is the theme. I needed emotional presence. And I think that a lot of times men can struggle with this. And maybe this is a question you're going to get into, but I think something that would be helpful to hear from you is the process of you like believing me, because I think that's what changed things. I think that for a while, tell me if this is correct, probably your interpretation of things was like, you're just kind of dramatizing this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's a hard.
I don't think you wanted to.
That's a hard thing to like acknowledge, and because it makes me sound like, oh, you just like you're such an idiot. You just could have believed her. But it is disorienting to be. It's not like, I don't know, like when I imagine disease, I'm like, oh, this person's got a broken leg for 6 months, so they can't get out of bed. They're not like getting out of bed one day and then they're back in bed the next day, you know, like, and so the fact that things would go so different, like some days would be on, some days would be off, was very disorienting for me. It's very unstable. Like you're like, what version of life am I going to get today, you know? And things are getting challenging. We have things that we need to be doing like together, but there is really no together ever, because things are like,
from your perception of what together is,
what together.
My perception of together is emotionally and spiritually, and your perception of together is
practically. We have all this going on in life right now, and I'm doing it like, I feel like I'm doing it all alone, and I like, it's very, very difficult. So and
then on top of that, I want to just, because own my part of it, which is I am not like naturally good at managing my time or practical like homemaking things. And so even when I did feel good,
you're like much better now.
I think I've grown a lot. Like I actually feel really proud of the way that I take care of our home now, the way that I manage my time and all that. I feel really efficient in a way that I did not for the first couple of years of our marriage. And I really have had to learn that and work super hard to be intentional about it, because of the fact that I don't know how I'm going to feel every day when I wake up, and I don't know how hard I'll be able to push myself. And so I'm like, I've got to stay on my game, but I wasn't doing that. So I'd be like, oh my gosh, I feel good. I'm going to do a sewing project today. But meanwhile, I haven't washed the dishes in 2 days or like done laundry, you know? And so that was challenging for you too, because you're like, we feel good enough to do this sewing project. The way I was thinking about it was like, yeah, well, I feel good. I want to take this little bit of time that I have to enjoy myself. Anyway.
Well, I think just finding that balance, which all marriages have to, between like play and practical and all these things, you know, I think it was really hard for us because I think two things. I think you had an expectation on marriage that was very Disney princess oriented.
Emotionally oriented.
Yes, like The Notebook. We're going to be doing The Notebook every day.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, we're married. There's 2 of us. We're going to get so much done today. We're going to like,
you thought you were going to marry like a gym partner, like basically you thought you were going to marry like a man in a woman's body. And I thought I was going to marry a woman in a man's body.
I just realized parts of that. Yeah, there definitely were parts of that. And I think, you know, specifically, I think even in my own dating previously, like it was really easy to find like super complimentary things related to like lifestyle things, you know, and none of those relationships ever worked out for obvious reasons, you know.
Because on the core level, you didn't have those like core.
Totally, there was not.
You and I are the reverse,
right? We share all the core things, but like a lot of times we have like lifestyle mismatch.
Yeah.
And so working through all of that while you were like super sick, you know, and it's not like there's an answer to these things either, which is also really complicated. It's like with cancer, okay, you can do like chemo, you can do these things, and this is normally what we see when you do this. Like you have some kind of direction. With Lyme, it's like you just like people are going to tell you that you don't even have it. It's going to present one day and not present the next. It's like
other people are going to be like, you need to go to Germany and be put into a fever for $30,000, and then other people are going to tell you need to be stung by bees.
And insurance covers none of this, right? And so you're kind of like trying to self-figure all this out. And it's getting better with this disease currently, but it's been a really, really hard journey. It's been expensive. It's been emotionally draining.
Even now, like we know what to do, but it's like so expensive. It's so expensive.
And it's just constantly always there. And it's like, okay, you can't do this because you've got this there. And it's been this, like, I feel like we've just been fighting it since we got married. And we have been fighting it since we got married. So, I think neither one of us, like, let's just kind of switch now to the faith discussion. Neither one of us were really raised with a grid for suffering. My family's way of processing things was just kind of not really talk about it. You just kind of, my dad was like, we used to joke that he's very, very John Wayne oriented in his approach to life, which really is not actually super great when you've got to take care of a woman's heart to have that kind of way of processing the world. So that was one of the things that I was kind of raised in, was like, you just get it done,
And since he's come to the Lord, he's like,
that shifted a lot.
Yeah, he's like,
totally.
The Lord's transformed his life, which is amazing. But that's not how he grew up.
That's not how I grew up. And I also understand that with men, you have to be harder sometimes. And, there's a lot that fall on your shoulders. And so it is but I didn't have like, there was never a grid or a way to
frameworks for processing emotion.
Or suffering specifically, And I think with your worldview, growing up in a lot of the kind of word of faith and healing and all this stuff, it's like there isn't really a grid for what happens when God doesn't heal right then and there with how we conceptualize healing.
Yeah.
And we're saying this as people that have both experienced radical healings in our own lives. We have prayed for people that have experienced radical healings. And so we are like praying to God for healing, for sure.
I've never personally experienced radical healing. Okay. I would love to.
Yes.
But I've seen it. I've seen it in other people. And we absolutely believe in the supernatural and the Holy Spirit moving in those ways.
Totally.
But, I don't know even what my parents believed about this stuff growing up, because I don't know if I wasn't paying attention or if I wasn't interested. But there were things that I picked up on that may or may not be what they actually believed. And so I just want to disclaimer that. But definitely, like, my perspective around healing was very word of faith. And for those who are not familiar with word of faith, it's like the name it and claim it. And so this created a lot of, I would say, like, superstitious type of activity in my thinking, because I was like, I can't even necessarily acknowledge some things because then I'm claiming it. And so this was always a battle of like, do I get a diagnosis for this thing that I want to figure out is going on, or do I not, because I don't want to claim it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't want this to become my identity, and
yes,
all those.
Which I agree with, not making something your identity. Like, I've seen the downfall of, for example, making endometriosis your identity. Like, I am very fine with saying I have struggled with endometriosis. I've been diagnosed with it. Yeah. I struggle with anxiety. I've been diagnosed with that before. But those are not like how I view myself. I view them as, I don't even know. They're like peripheral things happening to me, but they're not me. They're not who God created me to be, et cetera, et cetera. Right. But the Lord can use it.
Sure.
But I did not have that framework. And then I went to a school of ministry where we were taught that it is always God's will to heal 100% of the time. Okay. What is downstream of that thought process? They don't have to say this for this to be the case. So that means if somebody's not getting healed, it is their fault ultimately. Right. Because what else would be stopping the healing? Mm-hmm. If it's God's will.
Ultimately, you don't have enough faith to be healed, which is why you're not healed.
Or you have some hidden sin in your life, which creates, if you don't actually have hidden sin in your life, then you're like freaking out like, what is it? Did I like watch something, or did I walk by somebody who had a spirit and I picked it up? It's just like, this a whole thing that you don't want to go down.
And it really does create kind of like a monkey brain in the thinker, because it's just constantly like, it's never at peace, And so it's always evaluating, what did I do wrong? Mm-hmm. What did someone else do wrong? Where am I like lacking something, And it really can create a lot of frenzied kind of thinking. Mm-hmm. And I also think there's no processing for like what the value of suffering might be. And that's a really hard discussion to have because no one wants to suffer.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to suffer. And you and I were just talking about this related to the life of Paul, like how much Paul suffered. Wasn't necessarily some of it, the thorn in his flesh could be a physical ailment. They don't know.
We don't know.
But, you look at this man, he's thrown into prison, he's starved, he's beaten, he's all like the things that Paul was looking at. He would be cast out of a Word of Faith church for not having enough faith, really like, when you look at his life and what he endured, and the same thing for when we look at the life of Jesus, that the walk with God oftentimes involves some level of suffering. And we didn't really have a grid for how to suffer.
I would say it will always.
Yeah.
Paul even says that.
Yeah. So I don't think either one of us were really given like the tools for how to process suffering in a healthy way. And I think that it's one of the things I actually think the Catholics get really right in a lot of ways is that there is just there's a framework and a theology of suffering. And so, I'm just curious, like how you process your pain now and how you process like when days are hard, when things are not going well, and you feel sick and the healing that we're hoping for hasn't come yet. Like, how do you process that now?
I think it's important for me to also like update people on where I am now with all of this, because that is involved in the whole processing of the pain. And these are both topics that I would love to talk about more in depth in future episodes, but I'm waiting for the right time. One of them is that I have suffered for most of my life also from OCD, and I didn't know that until I went through my postpartum depression and anxiety, and I found out that that's what had been going on for all those years. And so that's one thing that I would say actually has caused me more suffering than my physical stuff that I've gone through. And when Paul talks about the thorn in the flesh, for me, that's what he's talking about. I'm not saying that is actually what he's talking about, but the way he talks about it is how I have felt about that. And so I think that's an important part of like context for suffering that I go through. Second thing is I have Lyme disease still right now.
Yeah.
I'm getting my second treatment at the end of the month. And I had my first treatment in 2019, and I didn't know that I needed follow-up treatments. Miscommunication with my doctor. And
I don't think that they knew.
I think there's new research that's come out since then, like showing that you need 2 or 3 treatments, not 1. Anyways, so I still have Lyme disease right now. That Lyme disease has actually caused us to not be able to have another baby. That's something I'd like to talk about in the future. But yeah, we've been dealing with secondary infertility for a couple of years, and that has been also extremely difficult and painful, because my greatest desire in life is to be a mom to lots of children. And we've realized that Caleb is such a miracle that because of the endometriosis in my history and because of my health, like I was still sick then, but I was somehow able to conceive him, which is amazing. And so those are really significant parts of my current like suffering, I would say. But a couple things that I've learned, I would say what threw me into like I have to deal with this once and for all in my life, because the way that I used to cope was just like basically being so optimistic that I would just be optimistic for a future time. I'm gonna be healed. I'm gonna be, and that's kind of like how I would get through it. And when I went through postpartum depression and anxiety, like I literally could not see that I would possibly ever be better. And anybody who's experienced that can understand that. You are under like such a dark cloud and you don't feel like you'll ever come out of it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have like a future thing. I didn't have it within me to even be like, at this point, I'll be better. At this point, it was just like, wow, I actually this is purely my mind. Like I cannot get out of this.
Yeah.
And that really forced me to dig deep. So first of all, I got a Christian therapist. She was really pivotal for me and very, very helpful. And if anybody is in that dark place, I recommend that. Get a Christian therapist, because you want somebody who has the same value for getting you back on track with the Lord, because that's ultimately what you need. You need to, like, it's about you and the Lord. And sometimes you just need help along the way in that, and like discipling in that. So I got a Christian therapist, and I started reading books from Catholics about suffering, because I didn't find, I'm sure there are Protestant resources that they're not as many.
Right. C.S. Lewis has got some really good
and he's Anglican, which is very similar to Catholicism, so there's a lot of crossover there. And I started learning about like there's other theological perspectives out there than that God's will is to heal 100% of the time. And that was really helpful for me, because then I was like, oh, so my suffering that I'm going through is not my fault, like directly my fault. I didn't like do something and now I have, I didn't watch Lord of the Rings and now I'm having, I don't know, this spirit attack me. And realizing that, I don't know how I missed this before because I grew up reading the Bible, but just seeing in the epistles over and over again, in our suffering, in our weakness, we see his strength. And he says, when you suffer, it'll produce hope and endurance and faith and all those things. So that was really helpful, like rereading through Paul and with fresh eyes of like, oh, perhaps it is not always God's will to heal. Perhaps sometimes, or maybe the healing looks different than we think. Is more,
or it comes later. I think it just, I think that there is a, my hope is still that we will get through this, and I believe that we will at some point, but I think we've both just kind of not put a date on when that's going to be. And I think that's where the mystery of this comes in to some degree, is just choosing to be faithful, to be submitted in our hearts, to still like remain hopeful and faithful, to not get weary of trying to find solutions for things, to just kind of keep pushing through.
The way I would say this is living like in the present moment. I think a lot of my life I spent living for the next thing. And that's part of how I would rally myself. Even like when I was Miss Tennessee, I don't think most people knew how much I was physically suffering. I mean, I was so sick that year and a half. After Miss USA, for example, for 2 weeks, I couldn't get out of bed. But I couldn't tell you like why. I was just like, I physically can't get up. Like I was just like so absolutely wiped. And so living in the present moment has really helped. The problem is that when you don't know how to suffer well, then you can't live in the present moment if you are suffering in that moment. And so some things that have helped me with that process is actually learning how to give my suffering as worship to the Lord. And
what does that mean, like practically?
That's what, so it means a couple different things. When I am physically suffering, or if I'm struggling with OCD something, my brain is like stuck in a loop. I don't always remember to do this right away, but eventually I do remember, because I've like really worked hard on this over these last couple of years, is I will pause and just say, Lord, I just offer this to you. I just offer this to you. I offer this suffering to you as an act of worship, because you're worthy. And probably gonna cry when I'm talking about this. Another thing is just remembering that like Jesus suffered, and he is not a stranger to how I'm feeling in that moment, and just knowing that like he understands exactly like what I'm feeling. And I will like visually, sometimes I'll even just close my eyes and visualize him in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's alone and he is asking his disciples like, don't go to sleep, like I need you, I'm suffering, I'm afraid. And so I'll just be like, I'll be with you, and I'll suffer with you. And so I'll just cry there with Jesus and know that my suffering unites me to him and his suffering. And I didn't understand that years ago. And so it's really amazing, because suffering is still painful. Like I still have aches in my body. Like I have a lot of pain from Lyme disease. And then I have a lot of mental pain because I still deal with OCD, even though it doesn't run my life anymore. But what's so amazing is just knowing that I can give it as a gift to the Lord, that it's something like, it's something that costs me, and to be able to give that to the Lord is something that we can't do on the other side of eternity.
That's what I was thinking about.
It's the only time when suffering can be a part of our worship, because for the rest of eternity we won't have that. We'll just be looking at his glory and so moved by that. And now on this side of eternity is an opportunity in mystery in lack of certainty, in lack of like, I don't know what I'm going to feel like tomorrow. I don't know what I'll feel like in 10 years. I have no clue.
Yeah.
And just learning to trust the Lord in that mystery. Instead of, I think I used to trust in an outcome.
Yeah.
He's going to heal. And I don't trust in that anymore. Now I trust in like the actual goodness of God, that he's so good that his goodness can get me even if I'm in a dark place. Like he's so good that even if I suffer from Lyme disease for the rest of my life, like he's still really good. And he's so good that even if we can't have another baby, like he's still good. And those are hard. Like, it's still painful, obviously, because I'm fervent about it. But it's just crazy. The more that I've suffered, the more convinced I am that he's really good. And I don't even really know how to explain that to somebody. Yeah. And I couldn't have said that to you a few years ago. And so, yeah, that would be my encouragement to people. Like, even if you don't like suffer from physical stuff, I think every single person can relate to suffering in some way.
There's no one on the planet who doesn't suffer to some capacity, you know. And I'm reminded, even just when you're talking about this, how this was really like David's MO. You know, he would just bring the Lord into his suffering in this very, very tangible way.
Yeah.
And he would complain, and he would cry out, and he would embitter himself in some ways against the Lord, and then he would turn, you know. And it's kind of like this, but with every psalm that David would offer up, it always ended with this, like, you are faithful, and where else will I go but you, you know? And so it's just kind of the way, but it's really easy to conceptualize this. It's much more difficult to embody this and to live this out, you know, in the midst of the suffering. So that's really, really good. So I have just a couple questions here. I want you to give these to me in like 60 seconds or less.
Oh man, that's my specialty.
We're gonna wrap up here. But so what have you learned about staying positive with chronic illness?
You stay positive by acknowledging that things are not good, and acknowledging that God's goodness is bigger than that.
Yeah.
Really.
So it's not like focusing on the problem or whether you've been healed yet or not yet, but you're actually like focusing on the goodness of God and allowing that to eclipse like how you're feeling in that moment.
And even the fact that when I am weak, it is an opportunity for God's strength to be seen through me. And that's an honor, and focusing on that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so what do you think the Protestant and Word of Faith movement can learn about suffering?
A lot. First of all, you know, this is a hot take, so hopefully this is okay for me to say this. I personally think the Word of Faith is that movement has taken things so far that I don't think it's like good altogether as a movement. I would just abandon it. Just be charismatic, you know, believe that the Lord works, and he can't be boxed in. The Holy Spirit is alive and active today. He can heal. He absolutely can heal, but trust his will. We don't have to do anything. We literally just trust him. That's what faith is trusting him that he can heal us. I don't think like we should just be like, this is just how I'm going to be forever. I'm just going to be Lyme disease. I don't accept that. Yeah. I also don't accept that I have to like do anything. Yeah. I just accept that whatever his will is for my life is going to happen because I am seeking to walk in surrender to him. Yeah. And so I think that would be a big lesson for those movements is to recognize God can heal. He does heal. Even if it doesn't look like what I think healing should look like. Maybe he wants to heal your heart. Maybe for your heart to be healed, you actually need to go through some physical suffering.
Or there's some other, I think if we look at suffering and challenge through, you know, the lens of something that's going to eventually produce fruit in our lives.
Like going to the gym.
Yep.
You would eventually subject yourself.
You subject yourself to what this is to allow the goodness of this fruit to be produced in your life in a way that no other thing can produce in your life. And in that suffering and in that perfecting of the fruit in your heart, you become more like Jesus. And that is one of the core reasons that we are on this earth right now. And so, yeah, I totally agree with that. What do you, on this last question, I'm going to put myself on the line here. And maybe to people that are suffering or to their husbands, what do you wish that I would have done different early on? Or how would you encourage husbands who are interacting with this with their wives?
Okay, so one major thing, and I know this is not always the case, but something I do see regularly is husbands struggling to conceptualize what's going on with their wives. Maybe they're not like fully not believing them, but they're maybe not taking it that seriously. There's a reason for this. Testosterone is protective for men in their bodies. So you could have like similar things affecting you, but your body could handle it better because of testosterone. I'm probably oversimplifying this, by the way. So if you're a scientist, sorry. And estrogen is protective of female brains. So like we're less likely to have neurological things like autism and some of these other things, ADHD, but we're more likely to have chronic health issues. Whereas men are more likely to have chronic health things show up like ADHD or autism, but they're going to be physically feeling good. So that's one thing with men, is that they have to understand that they are not going to physically understand. Also, estrogen, the presence of estrogen in your body increases your pain receptors. So women also feel their pain more severely than men do. So I think it's really important to, if your wife is saying something, like, unless she is just really a lazy person, which you got to figure that one out for yourself. But like, I'm not a lazy person because I was achieving a lot of things when I felt good. When I felt good, I was doing stuff. I was going out. Like I'm the kind of person that wants to be progressing and moving forward in life. And I had to have this conversation with myself. I'm not lazy. I just feel so poorly a lot of my days that I cannot get myself up out of bed, or I cannot do anything besides just keep the kitchen clean or just take care of Cleve or whatever it is. And so I think like, the character of your wife, and if she is not a lazy person, which should not be your first assumption, hopefully if you married her, then you really need to take seriously, what could it be that would be causing her to struggle like this? And believe her and take that seriously. And that's hard because on the other side of that is spending money to figure out what's going on.
And it's a mystery, in a lot of ways. Like it can be a mystery at first, and it's confusing, and it's not clear. And I think that all those things are really difficult for the male brain, because we want like the answer. We want to understand like the landscape. We want to understand what we're dealing with, and that can be really, really challenging. And it's.
But I'd also say like, be emotionally present with your wife in it. Like, it is really, really hard for me, for even my identity as a mother, as a homemaker. I felt like such a failure, and I felt like he just thinks I'm a horrible wife because I am not doing these things. I'm not keeping the house clean. And even now I still struggle with this sometimes. Now that I would say, I feel like I'm a good homemaker now. I have my routines, my rhythms in the home, and I'm really pretty good at maintaining them. But there will be some times where a couple days I'm just like absolutely run down, and I cannot do anything except for just take care of Cleve. Like, we drove all day yesterday on a road trip coming back home. And so today I have had like no energy. I'm not feeling good at all. And I had to run out. I had to go do errands, and when I came back, you had cleaned up the house. The house was a disaster because Cleve is 3 years old and was throwing everything everywhere, and you had cleaned up everything. And that was so incredible that you did that for me. And but then I also felt guilty, like, that's my domain, like I should be doing this. I don't work full time. I hardly even work part-time. I work like the part-time hours doing stuff for Restore 7 and my podcast, and it's still like, so it's still something that's really hard for me. So I think like being proactively, like, you've gotten like so much, you've improved so much with this, like proactively being like, you're doing so great. I can tell that you're not feeling good, and you're like
just being seen in that place, I think, for sure. And I think that's what was one of the things I wish I had done better. I also, I think sometimes, you think to some degree marriage will be this kind of reciprocal trade, this 50-50 thing. And it's just, I'm not even sure if it should be, like, it's like, that's not, and so I think like you have to kind of break these concepts of like this is what needs to happen for the team to function, for us to move forward. And some days that means 80-20, sometimes it means 90-10, sometimes it means 70-30, some days it is 50-50. And so it just kind of is what it is,
The way I view it is that we're both giving 100% of ourselves.
Yes, yeah.
And that's what's required. Like, that's what the Lord asks of us from my perspective.
Totally.
Scripture is He asks us to give 100% of ourselves. to serve one another. And sometimes your 100% is like objectively more than mine, but sometimes mine is, because even though my physical capacity is small, my emotional capacity, I would say, is like bigger, which I think is pretty normal for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I try to emotionally be there for you, or I don't even know how I'd say that. Like, just like be, verbal support and encouragement with what you're doing with your book and things like that. But it is hard to not, especially in like this feminist culture that we exist in, where there is this emphasis on 50-50. There is an emphasis on women feeling like we've got to like earn our place or whatever.
Yeah, and I see it even in men. I don't think it's just strictly feminine. I think there is a concept that what I have is mine, what you have is yours. Like,
well, which I think is because of feminism.
Yeah, it could be.
I think it's because of feminism, because feminism is the reason that like men think that women should be financially contributing to the home, because we used to understand that it was enough for a woman to like, that it brought value for a woman to just take care of the home and children. And now we don't view that as like a value that's exists in the home culturally. Obviously, like within the church, hopefully people are
Totally
not having that perspective.
Yeah, well, this is really good. I'm sure we'll talk more about these issues, but thank you for sharing all this. And I hope this is helpful for people that might be suffering in some kind of way in life, which is just part of the experience. So do you have anything else you want to say?
Okay, do you have any recommendations for husbands? That was the last thing I was going to ask you. If you were to go back and just tell yourself, like, you could have a 2-minute conversation with yourself, what would you say?
That's a great question. I wish that I had just been like gentler in how like I would speak and communicate, and that's something that is hard for me to think back on. It's just like, man, I just really handled that wrong. And then I think just trying to really take something seriously. And when I was take you seriously in certain ways, and when I was struggling with that, I wish I would have taken it to the Lord more. I did a lot of processing, I feel like, in my own like maze of my mind sometimes, in ways that were not helpful. And I think that, I think there was so much that was going on in some of these seasons that it was really, I just don't think I maintained the right spiritual shield against everything that we were facing, in ways that I wish that I had done better in. And so, you just kind of live and learn. And so that's one thing that I really am trying to just get better at, is respond well when, you're not feeling well, and to grow in that way. And to also not be so outcome oriented. Like, I don't know when this season is going to end. I don't know, it's like, but all I can kind of control is how I react and respond in this moment that we're in right now. And so learning how to do that day after day and month after month is really hard. It's really, really hard, especially when you have kind of all these expectations of like, this is how I want life to be, and this is where I want to be in this season, and this is what I want to be doing. And you have something that you just cannot control. It's very hard, so I think that there's similar lessons that you're having to go through, I'm having to go through.
Yeah.
In like my version of that, so.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
And I would say I recommend reading books about suffering, reading articles about suffering. There's a lot of really good Catholic resources. Again, don't be afraid of, everybody's afraid of Catholicism in the Protestant world. You can listen to a Catholic teacher and go, this stuff is stuff that resonates and this doesn't, and you can move on.
Yeah.
And there are really, really great Catholic teachers, especially some nuns who talk about suffering and how to
maybe we'll put some of the links to those books in the show notes. So,
but thank you guys so much for watching again, and for hanging with us as we keep changing locations.
I know.
We're trying to move right now, so this is part of what's going on. And yeah, comment below if this episode was encouraging to you. Share it with somebody. That helps us grow the channel so that more people can be encouraged and uplifted and challenged in their walk with the Lord. And we will see you guys next time.